The bright sunny weather called me out for a break, so I ended up taking a break, and I'm going to finish up today. So these are adjusted now. The lock collar essentially is now engaged, so these aren't going to move. They will settle a little bit, so we'll see where we end up finally after, a couple 100 kilometers. But everything's tightened up and good, and now it's time for the front. Now, the spring compressor I bought is for McPherson style springs, so it won't work on this. So I have to do this the old school way, which means essentially getting the shock out of there, breaking loose the crown nut, king nut on the ball joint, and then and I have to undo the such a glare there. We have to undo the sway bar end link as well, but then we're going to bring it down to the ground and use a jack to take the pressure off that spring. If you go online, you read about that. It basically just says you're going to die if you do it. That's not the case if you're careful. I'm sure some idiot has died from doing it, but I'm going to do it and I'm not going to die. It's going to be fine. I was just trying to avoid it. And honestly, the spring compressor you'd have to use to do this, it's just as dangerous. Like, really, there's a lot of load on those, but like I said, if you do it properly and you do it carefully and slowly, it should be totally fine. The only thing I'm going to keep an eye on is when this control arm comes down, I don't want it to hit the header, but actually I believe I have lots of room before that even happens. But I'll keep an eye on it regardless, because it's going to be a slow process to begin with. So anyhow, off we go. So tired, but this one is in. Everything's retightened. The only thing I have to do left now is tighten the actual top of the shock, which is there. Not that you can see it, but you can't do that until it's on the ground when it's compressed. I'm gonna bring it down, put the wheels on, tighten down those shocks. I tightened both the bottoms; those are all good. I'm going to go over everything regardless. Oh, look at that little rust spot. It's a bummer. And then we'll see how stanced out it is, because I got it pretty low. There's definitely going to be an inch or two in it down, but there's not much further to go. There's only like a 1/4 inch left to sleeve. So we're going to see where it sits, and then I'll tighten everything up once I'm happy with it. Well, sometimes things don't exactly go the way you plan. Not a huge deal, but we're in a different setup at the moment. My dad's El Camino's back on the lift. That was planned, but this wasn't planned. So you see this, it's looking mighty fine. Those are the springs that came out. The ones on the left are from the rear. Those in the front, those are the front ones. Those front ones are super worn out, and my car had a lower stance with the worn out springs than they do with the coilovers. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One is my fault completely. When I ordered these front springs and sleeves, QA1 sleeves, shocks, excuse me, I ordered a 550 spring. That is not the correct spring. A 550 spring would be for like a big block. I was supposed to order like a 350 or a 400. I just completely, I don't even know what I was thinking, to be honest. I think I thought that you needed like a 650 for a big block and 550 would probably be okay. Yeah, no. This, right now, these coilover sleeves are a 1/4 of an inch from the bottom of the thread. Like, I could only go a 1/4 of an inch lower, and we have a 3-inch gap, just the way it is now. So, it's okay, because I called Speedway, who I got these from. I spoke with a very nice man. I feel quite bad now, actually, I don't remember his name. But he helped me on the phone to make sure I didn't not only order... I was worried I had ordered the wrong spring entirely, but it was the right spring, just the wrong spring rate. And that's because typically people don't buy them in pieces. I bought them in pieces because I was trying to accomplish something else. And they had a sale on, and I found a shock that worked for me that looked great, and I found a spring that I thought was the right one, and I could have ordered the right one, but I didn't. So it is what it is. They have now shipped me a 400 spring rate spring, and I also ordered one more thing to achieve the lowness that I want. The 400 springs are going to help, because these sitting right now, the 550s, because it's a higher weight spring, the engine's not heavy enough, the body's not heavy enough in the front to bring them, to have it sit lower. The 400s are going to help with that. And I want to have a lot of adjustability for if I change this to a big block or an LS or whatever. So I also got drop spindles. Drop spindles move that snout in behind here. There's a snout that the spindles like basically provides like a place to mount the wheel bearing and the rotor and your caliper bolts to it. The spindle has your tie rod ends on one side. It has the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint. And all the drop spindle does is moves that snout up 2 inches, which basically, if you think about that for a second, that lowers the whole vehicle 2 inches. The advantage of using a drop spindle is you maintain the geometry of your suspension. So just imagine, and what we're talking about here is that approximate area is where that snout is. If you move that snout up, the wheel goes up with it, but all of this stays the same. The geometry of your suspension stays the same, so you get good handling. Or at least you don't, slam your car and have no handling. So anyway, that long-winded explanation is what's going on. Anyway, my dad's car's up here because I'm going to put these on it because his are completely effed. I'm going to fix those. And while I'm at it, I'll have to turn the light on, I'll show you later, but his springs are really done too, so I'm going to stick mine in there as well. Both shocks are in, and both new to this car springs are in. I'm just going to put the airline on now. The airline's already on there. This is the little valve where they go together and you can fill it from. I'm going to mount it in the gas door like mine was, where it's supposed to be, not kind of hanging at the back of the car, which the previous system was. The way that works, we feed these caps on first, because that's what actually screws it onto that T. That goes on. Then you slide one of these little fellas on. I don't know if you can see that. They only go one way. Oops. On it goes. And then there are two little rubber grommets that slide over, and that creates a seal on the inside of the T. Like so. And then here's the T. Oops, make sure that's the side. One of them already has some O-rings in it. That one doesn't. This is the one this needs to go into. Push that little fella like that. And then the collar comes down. And it does the rest of the work for you. You just twist that on. That is one airline mounted. Now the other one's way easier because the little O-ring's already in there. I'll just need that collar. Should do it. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Awesome. The rest happens on the ground. This is fun. Look how low they are with no air in them. They would ride like horribly and keep rubbing, but look, they're almost as good as my coilovers. But yeah, I need to fix that with some air. So basically all I'm doing is just mounting this valve up to here. It just kind of scoots up through the body into a hole that's already there. Take that off, take that off. Much better. Now it just doesn't reverb bounce for the rest of its life. Nice. It'll move a little bit, but it's better than it was. There we go. Actually, it looks better too. So that is that. That's what, that light is the best, by the way. ATC LED bar. So she's installed. My air gauge, this guy, reads like 10 high, even like a resting position. So there's 100 pounds in there. 200 max is what these things are rated for. 25 minimum. 100 should be great for just cruising around. I'm gonna check it in the morning. I'm gonna take this to get my hair cut for the first time in 3 months or 2 months, however long it is now. And I'll get to drive it and check it when I put some gas in it, and then they'll pick it up from me where I'm going. That's a wrap. It is approximately a week later. I was just waiting on the springs to arrive and those drop spindles, they arrived. I spent the afternoon today, after doing some work, doing that. I didn't film it because it's really straightforward and I kind of already filmed all the other crap. So now's an exciting moment, the moment of truth on how low it'll be now that the spindles are in and it has the 400-pound springs in it. So let's see what we get. Should be a little lower. Yeah, just a touch. Oops, that's really low. Oh, that's... I'm not going to change it. I'm going to drive it like this and see what happens. Oh my god, it's pretty good. It's tight enough, I think. It's going to hit the fender wells. Oh, that is tucked. Oh, okay. So, it's just a little different than it was. I shouldn't be laughing. Okay, compose yourself. It looks awesome. I am probably going to raise it up a little bit. It is going to, yeah, it's going to harass the, I think it's actually touching. Yeah, it's touching under there. So yeah, gonna have to put it back in the air real quick and wind those things up. God, it looks good though. So I adjusted it. What did I basically adjusted the coils up just almost half an inch, but not quite. And I think it's giving me enough room now. I'm gonna drive it like this and just sort of see. I might have to bring it up a tiny bit more, but I'd say that the stance is right. That looks good. Yeah, that looks awesome. Nice. So yeah, just on a hair, I can get my finger right in there, whereas the front is tucked. And that's what I wanted. Just a touch tuck there. And again, once I start driving it a little bit more, it's gonna settle. This is tight for sure. Like, very. But I'll drive it. If it rubs, I'll adjust or I'll roll the front fenders too. So I'm excited. I'll take it for a test drive tomorrow. I think we could call this self-clearancing. That's actually not the tires, that's the fender, like the plastic fender. So I don't care that it's rubbing. I'll probably leave it.